American tree.
That's right.
Yeah, well, let's see here now. This is supposed to be putting plants and roses and bulbs. And I don't know what it's supposed to be put to bed, but it's that time of year when we have to. Well, getting pretty close to it. I hope we don't have to yet. For a while, I hate to see it come. That's the busy part of the year. And so last year we got a little report on our roses for last season here. And of course, we haven't found any sure method. No one else has yet either, I don't think. But it might be interesting to some of our experiments. We had 2,615 roses in this experiment, and 650 was covered with sawdust and not cut back, just leaf tops and all. And we lost 16 out of the 650, and that was 2% and 3/4 loss.
How deep saw it?
We used a large size aluminum scoop. I don't know what size you would say it was, but anyway, we used a large size aluminum scoop and just took and dumped it right down the stalk. I know.
Did you put a collar around the?
No.
No collar.
No collar, and that will stay in the cone. That just sheds the water. In fact, we left some on the mulch, and it don't work too well as the mulch in the spring because it sheds the water too well. Your water won't penetrate into the ground, and you have a hard time of. We didn't get a rain this summer that went through the sawdust. You only had to water, and that's the only bad part about it. But Gene Barner at Jackson Perkins said they saved about 50% of their labor on sawdust, and even alone, if that was anything else equal, it was still the best because of the labor problem. And they had awful good luck. They've tried it now. They tried 2 years. They tried year before last, and last year they went all out for sawdust, and they had awful good luck with sawdust. So, and of course, if you leave the sawdust on the next spring, you better, if you feed with nitrogen, of course, we feed with this material here. There's others on the market too, as anyone didn't get it. We feed with this company here. We feed their material every 2 weeks, so that gives you plenty of nitrogen. And that's adding to your nitrogen. We don't have to add more nitrogen. So, then we had 810 with burlap. These was cut back. It's cut back to about 12 to 14 inches high. And they was wrapped or covered with burlap, wrapped around, and we put straw over top. It worked well some places. We lost 52 out of 810. That's 6.2% loss. And then we had 315 straw only cut back. We cut these back. We lost 43 out of that 315. That was 13.3 loss. We had 350 corn cobs. These was cut back, corn cobs. We lost 35. That was a 10% loss. And then we had 300 corn cobs and not cut back. And we lost 22. That's 7.3. I think this cutting back hurt your roses. Really cut them back in the spring. We found that. I think that might be something right there. Now here's the one what most people use and probably recommend the most. We didn't had poor luck a year before, so we only used 125 with dirt cut back. That's the recommendation. We lost 27, and these were some of the hardest roses too. And this is harder than some of these others. And the ones that was least harder was under the sawdust. So we had 125 cut back. We lost 27. That's 20.1.6 lost with dirt. And that's where most of your recommendation. Some people has good luck with dirt, but we never have it. And then here was 65. Most of these is a little more protected back in the greenhouse. Not cut. Your cover was just plain air, nothing. Lost 2. 0.3%. Year before we had 175 in this same experiment. We didn't cover any of them, and we had 100. We kept 175.
Give us that again. That you're not covering up. How many plants did you have?
Well, they're a little more protected. They're back in the greenhouse. It's not out in the open. That's where most people would have it in their yards. They'd have little buildings around, something like that. 65. And some of these is own root cuttings, there's new cuttings we started and things like that. Not cut, just air. We lost 2.
Out of 6.
And that was 0.3%.
Is that protected on the north from north wind or anything?
No, it's not protected by the north. It's protected by the west. You got some evergreens on the around it, you know, if you're familiar, it's right there in the corner.
You have evergreens, right?
It's the roses, but here is one thing that these roses do not have, that the other have. Now, you can't go by this in the experiment. These roses are not fed every 2 weeks with this. These roses are never fed, only when they're in the spring we give them a little fertilizer. They're not fed with nitrogen. So that has a lot to do with it right there.
Don't have any tender growth.
No, we don't have a tender growth, so you can't go by that. But this year we're going to experiment with something in the garden that's been fed and see, not cover it all, see what
When do
happens.
you stop feeding in the summer?
We stopped this year, we didn't feed, middle of August was last feed. It's about that, just about that.
When you say you don't cut back, you cut some of the canes off, you don't let the canes.
No, we leave everything on. We leave everything. Don't do anything. Just the way the loose stuff.
And cut them back in spring.
And cut them back in spring. You'll get a few that's damaged by ice and wind, but I think these wasn't cut back either back then.
Most of those will be frozen anyway in the top part.
That's right. You don't have to worry. You can trim in but under sawdust we found that we had more green growth than we did anywhere else. We found that.
Do you suppose the sawdust insulates better that you don't?
No, I think it keeps your moisture away better. It sheds that water. I think that's it. I don't know. I just think that's because it's drier. It's always dry. And they also it throws them. We put the sawdust on early last year. We ought to be putting it on now. Now's the time to put it on. We ought to start putting that on now anytime. And that keeps it cool in there. You'd think it'd heat up, but it's cooler under that sawdust. We found out last year it's cool down there. And these roses go dormant faster under sawdust than you go.
Does it make any difference what kind of sawdust you use?
Well, I imagine it's mostly oak because we got it from. We got it. You mean the old?
Yeah, whether it's oak or
Well,
some other kind.
Oak, but if it's a little older, it's a little better. But we got it just as it came in the sawmill.
Fresh. This year's, it hasn't been over a year old.
No, I don't think it's been over a year old. It was in the last 3 or 4 months. We got it Carter's last year. Carter place. There's other places.
You mean up at Sherman?
Well, there is a sawmill at Sherman too. That's a barrel stave.
Across the river there. You know where that barrel stave place?
No, this is Carter.
You cross the river on your right side.
On the right side. Know where that old automobile is?
That stuff's old top of the hill.
Carter Oak.
Well, the
Yeah.
barrel stave place that I'm talking about is all of it.
Yes,
But that's all right to use if it's old
Now
sawdust.
in fact, we got a couple loads from barrel stave. They run out of Carter's, so we went on the barrel stave and got a couple loads from them. So we
They've got
got,
plenty out there.
so,
Carter's sawdust, if you'll pardon me, is a mixture of oak and various other woods, so they told me I got a load of it this summer. And it's partly oak, but a great deal of it is.
different variation. It don't make too much difference, but it's not recommended to use too much pine. You won't have too much pine unless you would get it from someone that was sawing. So, it looks like outside of the ones that wasn't covered at all, and you can't go comparison on these other because they was not fed. The sawdust is the best, 2 3/4%. But then too, some of these sawdust varieties is one that we lost as much as 75% the year before on some of the variety. Huh? On sawdust. Dirt was our worst.
When you lost 75%.
We used different things. The year before I haven't got the percentage here. We lost, let's see, this is,
Much colder winter the year before too.
yeah. We lost 7%, last year we lost 7%, a little minus 7%. And the year before we lost 16%. And we used evergreens, wilt-proof, sprayed with wilt-proof, dirt, corn cobs, pecan hulls, and some of them we didn't cover at all. That brought a percent up, but we didn't cover. So you just wonder whether it's what is best. And
This thing is not true.
now I like that trimming. It's got its help too.
You mean,
I mean,
best not trim.
well, to my notion, we're not going to trim any this year.
But you will trim them in the spring.
You have to.
Yeah.
You can probably take the lawnmower and trim it in the spring, it'll be that fun. The rotary, you know, it's cut them right down there, that's.
I trimmed some this spring, that wasn't supposed to be climbers, and they made runners high that ceiling, what caused that one?
You mean you had that much greenwood?
Yes, that much greenwood, two different rows, but.
What was it, raised?
Yeah, I go along with it, I trimmed the climbing rows, thought the thing was, cut it, and thought the thing was dead, I was getting ready to. That wasn't a climber. Dig her and throw her away.
It wasn't.
The thing fell out, she went 8 feet tall. No, so now. I gotta give you umbrellas. They've got runners on mine, I can show you right down back in the house there.
Is that right?
You got runners that know at least 8 feet tall. Might have
That's
been
how good.
drafted on the climber.
Yes, could have been.
Might have lost these things,
Uh-huh.
the original rows, and then the roots come up from that root.
Might have sported the climber too. We've got some rows that wants to go to climbers too, once in a while you have to.
Or maybe that's what they're doing, that's.
Could sport it.
Same kind? Is the blooms the same as they were the year before? Well, the new green runners didn't bloom.
Well, that's it. You got the draft. That'll win over pretty well. They'll win her good. The draft will win her over well.
Well, I know they got something besides blossoms.
You got them over 4 rows. They'll win her over well.
But I agree with Dick on a trimming in the spring because it really did wonders for that climber. New Dawn climber. Went crazy.
And if there's no more question on roses, we'll go to something else.
I just wondered about corn cobs, ground corn cobs.
Well, let's see here.
That wasn't one of your better.
No, corn cobs. Well, we had corn cobs here 2 ways. Corn cobs cut back, 350 roses, lost 35, that's 10% loss. 300 with corn cobs not cut back, lost 22, 7.3. Corn cobs are not too well. It's a little better if you don't cut them back.
That's not fair to corn cobs because you'd have to have the corn cobs the same size as your sawdust and you'll find it'll work.
Yeah, the corn cobs that spreads out more than your sawdust stays out.
Bigger corn cobs.
Yeah, well, we had to find corn
What do
cobs.
you think? Was it not as fine as your
No, it wasn't grow as fine as sawdust.
think corn cobs would cause mold?
The smaller they are, the easier the mold too. If you had the same size sawdust, it'd mold.
I would drop pretty fine, you know, over it.
Uh-huh. You didn't lose that. You're probably protected because you got some buildings around too.
Yeah.
In fact, I seen a rose garden where we got the burlap and straw. I seen a rose garden, and they had around 450 or 500 bushes in this rose garden. They had them with burlap and straw, and they cut them back, and it was protected. There was buildings, a few buildings around. It was in an average backyard and a garage and a building and other houses there, and they didn't lose the rose bush. And come spring, them there roses growing right through the burlap and straw and everything else, and looked like this where they cut them back. But it didn't work out that way for us. So, I mean, it makes a difference on protection. The same way these roses that wasn't cut back, there was more protection. They was in the greenhouse. It's a little different than where they're right out in the open. There isn't anything around it. It isn't. What'll work one place will work well for someone. So, but I say a person that hasn't any protection around at all wouldn't have to worry too much about covering with anything.
There used to be a theory that you leave the ground freeze first, then apply your mulch after the ground froze, so to insulate that, so it wouldn't thaw and freeze. You didn't try any of that in there.
Yeah, we did the year before. We let the ground freeze first, and then on some of these others, the ground froze first. But the sawdust, the ground had never froze. In fact, the roses was still. It was about this time of year when we started putting it on, and it was a month before after we put it on that we had a freeze. So we had the first frost. We had that on in the bushes. You couldn't tell it, but it was in there. It just poured right down the bushes.
Do you figure it's the freeze that kills the roses?
I don't know.
I think it's a cold wind.
Gene,
Actually, is what.
Gene Berner, Jackson Perkins research director, for Jackson Perkins said they've tried everything. He found out that covering on there before you get that first frost helps a lot. He don't know why, but they've discovered that. And that was, his recommendation. He was,
Works for Moses, might not work for Trump.
it won't, I saw that.
Joe, ask you about his lemon tree.
So, we can come back to that later. And, on, hardy chrysanthemums, they're getting at least, less hardy every year. I mean, the varieties is so much inbred with greenhouse types now that, they're not really hardy. So the best way to keep them, to be sure, is dig them up and bring them in a cold frame or a greenhouse, and then start off from one clump, bring one each variety. But that would be your surest way. And cover them if you are going to leave them in the field. I've experimented quite a few years with them. In fact, I used to take all the tops off, cover them with straw and leaves, and then you get a nice snow and ice on them and smother them all out. So I told, they kept, recommended to just leave the tops on, and if leaves or straw or anything lightly put over them, let them breathe. That'll seem like keeps them better than anything. Just leave the tops on. You will lose a few by the wind whipping the tops around, but you won't leave as many as you will smother them out. That's the worst trouble. I know Jackson Perkins used to have in their catalog to cut the tops off, and after I had to argue with them 2 or 3 times on that, and they finally got now you leave the tops on if you look in the catalog directions. And I know Professor Culver at the University of Illinois is putting out a nice little pamphlet on the winter care of hardy mums and their growing condition, and he asked my opinion on it to write on it, and so he's got the same way of his culture now, leave the tops on before the university put out to take them off. So if you're going to leave them out, although they're not near as hardy as they were. And of course, there is other ways besides. You can another good way is, and I've tried it and it works well. If you want to go to trouble, I think it keeps pretty well. Is just dig the clump out and set it over the side of where it was, and leave it off on top of the ground. And it seems like it keeps pretty well. It keeps better than it does in the ground. Just the clump and take the dirt right with it.
Do you protect it any then?
Well, you can leave your top on. It's just a little light protection. You don't have to protect it at all. I took them, dug them out, and set them along the side, and they kept better than some of the varieties that I've aimed to dig them out. Well, they aimed to dig them out and dig them out at the end of the season, and discard them, and get them out of the road, and some of the same variety in the field would die. The winter kill, and you hardly ever lose any of them just set out along the side, and not anything on them. And that's seemed like a good method. And then also I used to take them and used to have a fruit cellar, storage cellar. Take them, dig them, and put them right in a dark fruit cellar, and then bring them out in the spring. They'll go ahead growing. You hardly ever lose any that way. Just store them like you would a fall. Fruit cellar.
The spawn and freezing is what.
That's what it is.
Because they break the roots off.
Uh-huh.
If you dig them up, you got the roots on there. They're not going to break any more off. You've got so much there with it.
I never did see that in any instruction, but it works that way. I mean, I've tried it.
Yeah, we've had some that way. We just going to throw them away. Just dug them out and sit there, and the next spring, darn thing started.
So, well, so much for the mums. Well, the dahlias, that's kind of hard. They don't. That depends on how much nitrogen you fed them through the year, whether they're going to keep or not. If you fed them a lot of nitrogen, they won't keep no matter what you did to them. So we don't feed ours. We just put a little bone meal in when we plant them, and that's it. And it takes about all summer for the bone meal to take effect, and then they'll take off. But you leave the nitrogen off the dahlias. If you do feed them anything, feed them potash. I already got some potash. I'm going to feed them side feed this year on potash. But forget about the nitrogen. You get all foliage and no blooms. And you store them, our best, of course, is vermiculite. And try to keep them in a cool place, dark if preferable, cool as possible above freezing. And one man said he kept his, I think, 42 degrees left to it. I don't know how he does that, but that would be an ideal temperature to keep them at. But I don't know. So not everyone can keep them inside. So just the best about it. Yeah.
Now, on your dahlia, do you cut your clumps when you dig them, or cut them in the spring?
Well, there's 2 ways. It's a good idea to split them in 2 when you dig them, but I don't got enough tags to label anyway. That'd be the too many more. That'd be 2 tags instead of 1 to put on. So I don't do Mars that way. But I do turn this upside down to let that drain out. But it is better. I think it is better to split your clump. It's a little better.
No, they do the whole trim.
You wouldn't trim the whole clump so you don't know exactly where your eyes are going to come on your roots.
That's what I was.
Yeah, you can't, you don't know exactly where your eyes are going to come on them roots. And I never did like the method of washing either. That starts shriveling. I try to knock the dirt what you can on the crown. When you dig your bulbs, well, this is a crown, but just tap that lightly. Something wood is preferable, a little piece of steak, but don't tap any of your roots. And if you can, another good idea, if you can leave them about, leave them about 2 days after the frost has hit them, to leave them before you cut them back. Leave them tops and all. That helps harden. And then, say you could dig them, if you could dig them in the morning, it'd be better than leave them till that evening. Just set out on top of the ground, then go and knock your dirt off. That helps cure them bulbs, and your neck's not quite as weak. Otherwise, your neck is awful weak and they're awful brittle. They bend a little bit, and then you rinse your bulb. And then store them upside down and put vermiculite. Of course, it used to be before the vermiculite was known of. We used to use peat moss, and fine peat is better. Michigan peat, Canadian peat, and also leaves. You get dry leaves. And also, I've had pretty good luck in sand. There's several different ways, but I like the vermiculite best now. And it's not too expensive. You buy it in a lumber yard. I mean, it's not really expensive. You use it year after year.
Well, when do you dig these? Right after the first frost?
Right after the first frost. If it's not too late in the year, you're not afraid you can't. If your frost is going to come too late, I lost a lot of dahlias one year. A lot of good seedlings too. I was kept leaving them on and didn't get one until about the last November. And when it come freeze, it froze ground and all, and they was done for. They was done for.
You don't usually get a freeze that early around here, though.
It'd be that late.
In November?
Last November.
The last 10 years, I've never dug them up before the 1st of December.
Huh?
The old gardener down the Tennessee years ago told me to cut them off top of the ground and leave them in the ground until around the 1st of December.
Well, I don't, if you cut them off, if you cut their tops off and leave them in over a week and you get warm weather, you get what they call second growth, and then you're in trouble. They'll start growing again. And then you get that second growth on this track. I wouldn't leave them in over a week. I could cut them off. But I froze a whole lot of them one year that way. I mean, just leave them in too long.
You don't keep your fingers.
And so, let's see. That's, of course, cannas. That's another. You have to bring them in, and of course, we just bring them in, and all the dirt you can leave on them is that much better. And just throw them in a cool, dark place, or somewhere where you can out of the road and not keep them too warm, and just leave all your dirt possible. Of course, cut your stalks off on them. Better leave them a day or two if you could. Too. That's kind of hard. Yeah. And gladiolas is a little different. You dust with, as soon as you, generally dig them and let them dry out if you can outside for a couple of days on screen, and then bring them in and dust them with DDT and should store in like a hardware mash bottom tray or screen wire and leave air spaces between them so they get air. They like a lot of air, and they should be in a not too hot a place. If you could around 45, 50 degrees is ideal on that.
You wait till frost hits the top first?
No, you don't wait till frost hits that. That's different there. That depends if you got late ones, but you should dig your gladiolas about the ideal is about 3 weeks after you get done blooming. And when your tops, just before your tops start dying, and the tops start dying, it's a long time. I
left mine out last winter, and they come up and bloom this year.
Well, they will. I used to dig them. I like to dig them when the tops still hadn't really started to die yet, but had, and then just go down the row and just loosen with a garden fork, and then just go along and just yank them pull them out by the handful and then put them in the boxes and then take them over and then shuck the tops off. Well, let them set a day or two and then the tops will shut off pretty well. That's when you got a lot on you. I had, at one time I had around 100,000, so yeah, and it took you. I don't
You store those in anything, put them in this box, anything around them, brick light, anything like that?
No, you don't put anything. You try to give them all the air you can. I mean, you screen bottom and even leave fix that so you can get air in between that. So you used to have regular racks and, you know, just put them in, slide them in on these trays in a basement.
In other words, I should be digging those now. We should have had them done.
Well, if your tops have started to die, it's a little, they're still all right, but it's
We
a
won't
lot.
be able to find some. of
Yeah,
them.
it's hard to
I
find.
can still see them. On the top, they're still on.
Yeah, you said that.
They've been through blowing for a while.
Net onion sack, supermarket.
That's all right too. That's a good idea. But the ones in the middle don't get quite the air circulation. You really don't want to stack too deep. You keep from it. The thinner the better. But of course. Well, any other questions on any of this or anything else anybody wants to know about? I'll try to
What did you
answer.
say you busted your?
Well, I know you're going to ask that. I have the begonias down here, but I don't know. I never raised too many, but what I did raise is I didn't want to say too much about that because peat moss is dry peat moss, and then store them out in a cool, dry place and kind of dark. It's about the best way I've kept them. I never did have too many begonias to store. So maybe someone else would give you a better answer on that than I could.
How about Peruvian daffodils?
All right.
Wait just a minute. Anybody else that works with begonias?
I've seen them put in a shoebox with dry peat moss. Keep them about the same temperature as gladiolas. They come.
Okay. You were gonna ask about Peruvian lilies.
You know, I've had a few of them, but they're not much of a problem to store. I just about like gladiolas. I stored mine. In fact, I stored them in the gladiola trays. What few I had.
Wait till the frost gets.
No, you can dig them. Few about the same as glads. About 3 weeks after they're done blooming. The same deal on that. But I started just like glads. I don't know whether they kept all right. I never had any trouble with them. I just had a few of them. In fact, I stored them glad trays.
What did you say you dusted your gladiolas?
DDT, that keeps the trip down. So.
Is that about a 5% solution?
Yeah, 5%. I should have said 5%.
Well, I just wondered. That's after we dig.
Yes, I kind of keep the trip away. If not, you start early next year. Sometimes you put them in. There used to put arson on them. That kept. Suppose it kept down bacterial rot, but it didn't. I don't know. I don't want to keep it down. Anything. You know, George here probably.
George will be able to tell us anything on
Right. He stored a lot of it. If anyone, he probably has some ideas on here.
He's just sitting here, just saying
I haven't heard
nothing.
anything.
This is good. I like to hear this. DDT or permate?
Yeah, permate and arson. You use arson.
An easy way to dust them is
Some people.
Lysol, different Lysol when you plant them. That's getting in planting time, though.
just put a little dust in a sack like that, put a few bulbs in there, shake them around.
Well, that was always too much trouble. I just took them just.
I want to know how you fix fair strawberries for the winter.
Oh,
Do you have any ideas on
well,
that?
I used to raise some strawberries, and I never did. Sometimes with straws, some, but most of the time I never. I was a little further south. I just didn't do much of anything to them. Just let them go. I didn't have any much trouble in winter out. I haven't really. We got a few strawberries at home now, but I don't do anything with them either. I just mainly let them go on their own. But there is some of them have problems on that. I never did have any. I don't know. Maybe someone here can answer that. Mr. John.
Well, I had good luck last year. You went for a pretty good freeze about December 15th for 6 inches of straw and stuff. They came through beautiful.
Do you have much loss on them up here? I mean, if you didn't, if you didn't cover them, would you have any loss?
If you didn't cover them?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I think you'd have quite a bit.
I know we didn't. I never did have any. I used to raise quite a few strawberries, and I never did have any loss on strawberries by not covering them. So I didn't see any use of covering them if we didn't come through it. I didn't look for that much work.
I think you would lose
strawberries around here if you didn't,
That's out in the field. At home, I've got, we've had strawberries home, 4 or 5 varieties. Now I've got them here, but of course that's in the backyard and that's different out in the field, just like our roses and someone else is in the backyard. You've got a little different situation. Someone commercializing the field. So,
any other questions about plants?
How do you put a picture in a bed?
well, two ways. I've done that 2 ways now. One took up and took the greenhouse, and another we buried. And the one I buried, I've had figs on ever since in about the first part of July. Had ripe figs, and I get to getting fig number 1 off the one that took in the greenhouse. So, well, in fact, I didn't have mine under the ground. I just bent it over. It was a small tree and piled weeds and brush and straw and some little burlap over it and left it there and just let it come back out.
I've got one big round thing now, the other one's too big for it.
How big is the one that you got outside?
It's about 8 feet long, 6 wide.
That's about the house size this one is. It's about 6 feet long.
Up in where they come from, they got a regular closet already built.
Uh-huh.
They got their boxes already down on the ground. They cover them in. They put the cover on and straw that.
Yeah.
So mine,
To do that, perhaps the church tree.
no, you wouldn't have to. I'm just gonna try and mount a straw around it this year and I part way and then I'm not gonna clear the top. I think you can get that bottom protected, the main thing.
And you get a layer of frost thing that's
So, any more, questions or anything?
How about geraniums?
Well, geraniums is, really, that's, classified as an annual plant. I mean, that's in a different category. Probably the best is to just, get you a new start next year, but, if you haven't got a greenhouse, we take cuttings off of ours in the fall and take them as a joint. I always cut right through the joint and I don't have near much, root loss because they root better and they don't rot. You cut them right in the joint, don't use any hormone on them. And, you can pot them right in the pot or put them in sand, either one, they'll take off growing. Another good way is, well, I wouldn't say it's a good way, but it'll work, is to take the geraniums and take and shake the dirt off them. Just pull the whole stalk out and shake the dirt off and put them in a paper bag and tie them and put them down in a dark place, a basement or something. You'll generally get about 3/4 of them will grow next year. Just plant them right out. You can just hang them up too. That'll work too. Dry to the place.
What do you cut back on them if you're putting them in the ground in the spring?
Don't cut anything.
Don't cut them on anything back. You just put the whole plant back in. Then you can see what's not going to grow, what'll die back, and you can cut that back in. So.
Never had any luck. I always wound up dry brush.
Did you try putting them in a sack and maybe your basement or one? But some people have good luck with them, some don't.
I tried it this last winter, and what I had most success with was the small ones, the ones about 8, 10 inches, not the big ones.
I mean, the big ones, you cut them back a little would be better when you
I
put
had
them in.
real big ones that they had out there at the fairground, but they yanked up great big clumps, you know. I thought, oh man, these are going to be dandies. I'm going to start off with a bush next spring. They never come out. I was just kept the small
Tie
ones
the
in.
sack close.
Wrapping paper.
Now,
Brown sack.
this business of, cuttings on geraniums,
That's a subject in itself.
yeah, I realize. But, that would be done this fall then, and you'd plant them.
Well, yes, you
and
could. I
pot
mean,
'em.
you'd have to have a place to keep them in the winter or something. That'd be a lot of trouble through the winter. I mean, it wouldn't really pay a person unless they wanted just to really market with. Of course, we take that's part of we take the cuttings and of course, you can.
That way you start your new crop.
Oh yes, I'm sure. But you can take the cuttings of geraniums. There's a lot of different ways on that. In fact, you can grow them in the cans. You can take one geranium and this fall now, and by next spring you could have off of one geranium plant. You could have, if you want to work right, you could have 500 geraniums on off of one plant right now by taking it this fall. By cutting it. Joint cutting it, letting it grow straight up, and you're taking each node where you've got an eye, you make your cut there, and we'll make a plant next year, you get a lot of terrain and then keep that one stock again. I know that's,
They're easy to grow.
yes, they are, and there's several diseases that affect greens too. I mean, more than you think.
I started out last fall with a plant about that high, broke it in two, I didn't intend to. But since I had already broken it in two, I potted the top half of the thing, thinking by spring I had 2 plants about that high. Now I've got 5, throw some away.
Geranium's easy to root. In fact, I think they would root out of nowhere. I think you could just, and in fact, I've had them to root on, just like he said, just let them break off or cut it and just throw it down a bench or anywhere, and they'll grow. They'll start growing. They don't have to even be in dirt.
You won't mind if I just go to the greenhouse and pay about $1.20 a dozen for it, not bother. That's why I said that's the easiest way. I mean,
You wait for the auction, Mr. Bush.
yeah, or better wait till our plant auction. Why don't
You'll be losing with them there.
But we won't let him get them for $1.20 a dozen.
That's what. Buy them for across the Rosemont.
Yeah, that's on west side of the road. Yes, sir, he's good at it. Yeah, Weisel's good at it.
There's a variety of, speaking of geraniums, there's a variety that doesn't bloom, but you crush the leaves and make.
Yeah, it's a rose geranium. They
Yeah.
do have a bloom on once a year.
Well, I've never seen things bloom yet,
They bloom one time a year.
but,
Rose geranium.
mother started with a plant about this high. The thing is now, well, I've cut the thing back 3 times and keep growing on. On the side, right? Hack them with a knife back and the thing grows. The more you hack it, the worse, the more it grows.
What about coleus?
Well, that's
Take
about,
them during the winter?
no, you're getting into another field like the geraniums on your cuttings, but you can't hang them up though and let them stick in there. But you just have to make on cuttings, they're very easy to capping.
But, if you got them out in the garden, you can't pot them and take them in the house.
Well, yes, you could pot them and take them in, or you can take strips. They're easy starting strips. They'll start in water or practically anything.
Well, I was wondering whether I could take 1 or 2, pot them, and keep them in the house.
Because they're not too big. I mean, some of the coluses now, they're done ain't good now. They're tremendous. They make a pretty big size.
No, these are about.
You're talking about that ornamental foliage plant?
Yeah,
They're
coleus.
Yeah.
You gotta fluorescent light, they don't really thrive under the.
Yeah, they're easy. Just take strips off and put in water and then.
I've done.
What? They're easy. Yeah, I used to. I haven't anymore. I mean, you can do that too. They'll still do just like a regular. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty thing.
Jacob coat.
Switches to a glass space and then roll that water and then release
I got a funny story to tell you about that, George. I want to move them out of the front yard. I potted the ones I bought at the auction. I broke a little stick off and have one of these plastic cans I was using for a watering can. I threw the darn thing in there. I looked at it yesterday. The thing had started to rust.
Yeah.
Just didn't. No rainwater that fell in that thing. I don't want to do this. I've got 3 or 4 of the things down.
Wow, one question.
Any other questions of, problems on winterizing your?
Oh, yes. That cactus didn't do that I bought it.
Crown of thorns.
Crown of thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
thing
got
didn't
one.
do too well this spring. I think it got the pokeberry grew over it. I forgot to cut the pokeberry down. I think that interfered with the shaded it out.
Oh, you planted outside, huh?
Yeah, I just dug
I
it.
left one in the pot.
Yeah, it's your
Mine's
house.
all right.
No, I wanted to know, you have to dig it up about now.
Yeah, it's really a house plant. It's not an outside plant. It's more of a house plant, a porch plant, a turret plant. It does better in a pot. You get your root bound. It does. It's a plant that does better when your roots
Are bound.
bound than it is at. About any of your cactus, ornamental cactus or anything, probably will do better.
Did you buy it or sell it?
Yeah, I bought it myself.
Don't do, Chris, guaranteed.
Well, I think that
We're getting big.
I think the pokeberry grows.
I never have, they grow.
I planted a garden yard to keep the kids from jumping over the fence. I figured if they lied on that about twice, they wouldn't jump anymore.
You go to.
Lord, bring Paul's plant down there, name it, they can have it.
I don't want to extend, the discussion here, we'll be closing in just a few minutes. But I wondered whether any of you fellas want to talk about lawn problems, for the fall, like. Anything particular that you want?